Hensley, and I'm the chair of tonight's meeting. I'd like to welcome you all to Chiswick Town Hall. Welcome back. I hope that many of you were able to speak with some of our stallholders present today and received some useful information and advice. For tonight's proceedings, I as chair will be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. We have not a full in terms of items, but full in terms of interesting parts of the agenda. So I will endeavour to allow as many people to speak as possible. With that in mind, I would ask members of the public to, as always, wait their turn, not interrupt, and be kind. I was going to say we have a large number of people present, but I think we'll be able to squeeze all of you in, so I will skip that part of my notes. And I think we can go on to declarations of interest or apologies for absence, if there are any. I've had apologies for lateness from Councillor Giles, but otherwise no interests? No. Great. Then we'll move swiftly on to agenda item 2, which I have to read out. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and the recording will be made available for viewing on Hounslow Council's YouTube page. May I also remind members of the public that when speaking you must refrain from giving any personal details in your contributions to the meeting. So, like always, don't read out your national insurance number because everyone on YouTube will be able to hear it. So swiftly on to agenda item 3, minutes. Any changes to the minutes of the last meeting? If not, can we agree those minutes? Agree. Lovely. Okay, we're already 20 minutes ahead of schedule. There we go. I don't know why we thought that would last so long, but there we are. Right, so we move to agenda item number 4, which is an introduction to a fantastic community charity in my ward, the Rihanna Development Network, and we're going to hear from Rogers Aera, who's going to take us through some of the great work that you guys are doing. So, Rogers, please, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Rogers Orero from Rihanna Development Network. Rihanna Development Network is a grassroots charity based in the London Borough of Hounslow. And we work along with families, women, and young people who are going through challenges in life. And Rihanna Development Network was set up in the year 2005 as a registered charity. And the mission of Rihanna is founded on the belief that people only need opportunities and guidance to be able to achieve independence and to be able to have a reasonable quality of life. So Rihanna ensures that vulnerable people within the community will be afforded such opportunities so that they can make a positive contribution to the communities in which they live. And how did Rihanna come about? Most of the time, we have people from different parts of the world. Some are definite immigrants, some are typical British born. But at the end of the day, the issues around health, education, employment comes across. In the early 90s, a few immigrants moved into the UK, and they were facing challenges in terms of immigration issues, accessing education, accessing healthcare services. And it forced those people to come together to see how they could be able to address some of these challenges. This went on for a number of years, and then as they settled into the community in which they were welcomed, some of them decided to have families, and now it became a different ballgame. The parents had the idea of going back to where they came from. The children are typical British-born children having to live in the community here. It forced the founders to work more with the young people to see that if we work with the young people, automatically they work with the families. And this forced the organization to look at a number of programs to be able to address some of these issues. And some of the programs we run in Chiswick include, we run a football program to address the issue of the young people at King's House. This we do on Mondays to be able to give the young people a place where they can be able to go and express themselves. And on Tuesday in Duke's Meadows, we also run youth club activities. This is for the primary schools, where the young people can go after school to be able to socialize, to be able to learn life skills. And then on a Wednesday, we have coffee morning. This is open to all the members of the community where they could be able to come in, have a chat, discuss issues of concerns to them, both at personal level or within the community. And then on the same Wednesday, we run youth club activities. We have set up a music stage whereby the young people can come and record music to express themselves, to use music as a tool of engagement, but also as a tool of development. And then in the evening, we run a food program in partnership with the Felix Project because of the food crisis, so that we provide food where all the residents can come in and get fresh food. And then on Saturday, we run supplementary school. This is to support the young people who either might be falling behind in education or just need that extra support because the classes sometimes are bigger, so all the children are not given enough support. And then, how can communities access our programs? Each member of our staff have a particular email. We also have social media sites online, and we also have forms. But not only that, we definitely rely on volunteers. All this could not be done without the services of the volunteers. And what have been our impact over the last years? Every year we support 300 plus families in terms of either through advocacy, various support services, and we support 150 plus people engaged in either emotional well-being and support services, and 80% of our respondents have shown us that their confidence have improved as a result of some of the services we provide. And one of the things we also do is to provide stronger family relationships so that it reduces isolation. Now I would like to go to the next, just a small video to show what Rihanna is. And the name Rihanna has a historical context involving Rihanna River in Kenya, which never dried up during the dry seasons. Warring factions used to fight over the river until it forced the elders to bring the community together for mutual good. We now see Rihanna as an organization bringing people together for mutual good.
What activity have you enjoyed the most and why? I think going on trips or sports activities because they've been the most engaging and many people want to join in and experience the activity as well.
Yesterday, I wasn't here on Monday, but yesterday we went to the House of Commons and I enjoyed it because it was a new and fun experience I've never had before.
My name's Christian and I'm 11 years old.
What do you like about this youth club?
It's fun, no one's rude to you, the staff's very kind and funny.
Activity do you enjoy the most at the youth club?
Cooking and games.
Amazing and very supportive. The whole team, including Rogers, in charge of this centre, he has basically helped him in such an amazing way, where he's almost like a different person now. They treat the children as their own. I mean, my son has got such a nice relationship with Sarita. That they're like almost friends. The centre makes the kids very, very comfortable.
I mean, I was online searching for supplementary schools, because I could not afford it on private schools. So that's when I came across few other supplementary schools. I could not give up because I got a sense that this is going to be, the help that my son was looking for.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and discuss Rihanna. And as a small organization, we rely on volunteers, we rely on the support of the community. All this would not be possible without us working together. And with the austerity measures that have been there, small charities do struggle. Yet we believe we provide services which, if we were not there as a small charity, the council will also be having difficulty implementing some of the programs. For example, when it comes to the youth provision, if we didn't have the open spaces where the young people are, it supports them so that they could have where they could go after school or where they can socialize. Otherwise, it would cost the government even more if a crime has taken place, rehabilitating the young people or the community. So this intervention we provide, I think it supports the whole community. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Rogers, thank you very much. I won't make councillors do musical chairs here, but I enjoyed it in the video. Any questions from the audience for Rogers, or any comments? Can we?
Good evening. What's the main thing that the general people or residents of Hounslow and the Chiswick area and stuff can do for you? Is donations or more volunteers and stuff? What's the best thing for you?
Thank you so much. There are various ways of support we could be able to ask. For example, somebody could be able to share their time and skills with our beneficiaries or the staff, and also could be able to collaborate with us in terms of referrals, other services. But also, we are also seeking for financial contribution or to sponsor projects. We have several projects going on. Somebody could come and sponsor a particular project of choice, or they could make a financial contribution. Or people are working, they could be able to talk to their employers to enable payroll giving for the organization, so that we could be able to support the work we are doing. And other ways could also be to offer in-kind support, for example, offering facilities, food, materials. So those are the kind of things we also require, but also volunteers to do the day-to-day. For example, the Felix project, like now we need a van to be able to continue doing that. So things like that will be really appreciated.
Brilliant. Any others? I think in the front row. I think there's a microphone just coming to you. It's just for the recording. Oh, no, we've gone somewhere else. That's all right.
Is it just for people who live in Chiswick? And is there an age limit for it?
Thank you so much. Rihanna is working the whole of London Borough of Hounslow, also Ealing, and we also have some people coming as far as Hammersmith or Fulham, but we are based in the London Borough of Hounslow. Anywhere in Hounslow we can access our services. It's not limited to the young people. We also work with adults as well. For example, currently we are doing functional skills for those who might not have been able to go through the GCSE they could be able to come and do functional skills for the adults who might want to get into the job market. So that's also an area which we are interested in working with other people. Thank you.
Brilliant. Just at the front here. Oh, no, hang on. That's it. Wasn't a very good instruction, sorry.
You mentioned the use of King's House School facilities. How important is that to you?
That is a godsend, because if you look at, as a charity, we would not be able to afford to pay for the grounds. So as part of their corporate social responsibility, they are providing that free of charge for the training for the young people. Every Monday, we go and do training there. And then on Friday, we have a tournament in partnership with the W4 Youth. So we wouldn't be able to do it without that free support from the King's House.
How do you get the private sector involved? I mean, they're a source of funding, skills, sponsorship.
That's one of the $1 million questions why I'm here. And that's why I've come to seek for your support.
Here's your opportunity.
And in terms of the private sector, we'd be happy to partner with them, for them to partner with us so that we can be able to bring a change to the community so that they could be able to invest in the organization to transform their lives within the community. We would really welcome opportunity if the private sector can come in and sponsor some of the activities or work with us to address some of the challenges of the community.
Brilliant. And as councillors, I think we can help make those introductions as well. We had the flower market here last time, for example, with some sources of funding. So we'll chat after. Who was next? Just the lady in red over there.
I was wondering if you have links with any other similar organisations. I'm thinking of the Hogarth Centre at the top of Duke Road in Chiswick. It doesn't do exactly what you're doing, but there are some obvious similarities. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. The Hogarth, I know the Hogarth exists, and we work closely with Danny and the team. So for cross-referral, there are certain times there are young people who come to our service and we realize that we are not able to provide the necessary needs. In that case, we refer them to the next available organization that can be able to meet their needs appropriately. Similarly, W4 Youth, if we find a referral which Rihanna is not able to cater for, then that's where we look for the similar organization doing similar things or something close so that they could be able to benefit and their needs addressed.
Anyone else in the audience? No, we'll move to councillors then. Councillor Croft.
Sorry, it was just a quick one. So what's the best way for people to get hold of you if they wanted to volunteer or support you in another way?
We have a website, and on the website we have a form, but we also have our telephone number, and our office is also based in Chiswick, Edensa Gardens, but all the contact details, we have email, Twitter, all our social media sites can be able to give that to somebody, but it's all in our website as well. But also word of mouth for referral, we would not mind that as well. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor Biddulph, and then...
Thanks. Hi, Rogers. Thank you very much for that explanation. I noticed when I look at your website before this evening that some of your classes happen during school time, if I've understood it correctly. Is that right? You've got some daytime events and activities? And if so, who is that appealing to?
I don't know if I got your question. In terms of the supplementary school, we do that on a Saturday. That's from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. For the youth programs, we do that in the afternoon. On Tuesday after school, on Wednesday after school, and also on Friday in Brentford Mission Hall. We also do that after school. On the daytime program, the coffee morning, the Golden Lives, that is during daytime on Wednesday. And then the Felix Project, that's in the afternoon from 4 o'clock during the daytime. So those are the times when we have our daytime activities.
I must have misunderstood the website, so I'll have another look at it.
Pardon?
I must have misunderstood the website. I'll have another look at it. Thanks very much. And where do your sorry, just a supplementary, where do your referrals come from? Are you getting referrals from other schools as well as individuals? How does it work?
Some come from individual word of mouth because we have been doing this since 2011, the supplementary school. So some is referral from the previous students, some also from the local, like the Cavendish Primary, which is very close there. And then we have also some from Chiswick School. And occasionally we have referral from the social services at the borough for some of the young people that need special attention. Yeah. So it is a variety of different sources.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Councillor Gill.
Thank you. I think my question has already been answered, but I just want to thank you for coming today. It's been a learning curve. You seem to do so much, from helping migrants initially, and now you're helping almost everyone, which is great. And you seem to be so busy. You do Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I help Cafe Together, feeding the homeless and people needy, but I only do that once a week on a Tuesday. But hats off to you for doing such a wonderful job and amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. It wouldn't be possible without the wonderful volunteers and youth workers. I'm just there, but it's the support of the community that makes it possible. Thank you.
Councillor Giles.
Thank you very much, and apologies for walking in late. I had another meeting. I've been looking at your charitable objectives, and forgive me if this was already in your presentation, but it says that you are here to benefit people of African people from the Great Lakes area of Africa. And so I was just wondering, is there a lot of cross-cultural collaboration going on, or do you help people from other backgrounds as well? And I have a secondary as well.
Yes, as I said previously, maybe you hadn't come in originally when the organization was set up, but it has moved on. When it was set up, that was the original objective, but as people settled into the community, we realized that we needed to play a significant role in the communities in which we live. So therefore, Rihanna opened its space to support all members of the community. Originally, it was set up from that, but now it has moved on. That's why, if you look at the programs we run, it cuts across not only the migrants, but even the members of the host community.
And just to follow up on that, you've also stated that you are there for the relief of sickness and preservation and protection of good health, including the provision of information and advice on health issues such as HIV and AIDS. Has the local authority helped you much with providing information to help support individuals who are living with HIV or AIDS?
Yes, we are a member of the local Public Health and User Patients Forum, and we also trained to provide health support service in terms of referral for those who are newly diagnosed, because sometimes you find that it is a big shock once you find somebody. So that's when we talk to positive speakers who come in and also give their testimony to support those who are newly diagnosed. These are who have been trained so that it's not a death sentence, so that they can be able to live healthily within the communities. And the reason as to why we also do that, we realize that there's still a lot of stigma, despite the fact that this is a health issue which has been there for so long, but within certain communities, is still a taboo to discuss. So we try to have an open forum, open discussion, whereby these issues can be tackled by bringing in also experts and positive speakers who've been trained, who've gone through that, so that they can be able to talk to others. Yes, to answer your question, we work very closely with the West Middlesex Sexual Health Clinic, so that if there are any referrals, we are able to do that quite well.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Councillor Mishiso.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to firstly congratulate you, and because we often think of disadvantaged people of disadvantaged backgrounds as being a monetary thing, but it's actually more than that. It's about the lives of those young people at home with their parents who, through pressures and circumstances, are probably not around to be there, to step in at home with their children's education or the progress that they are making. So I want to thank you, Rogers, and celebrate what you're doing, and it's outstanding work. And you coming here, you know, you've got the leader of the council right next to you, and you've got the councillors here who will be your advocates and will continue to do that. You are a shining example of our community because you are a typical resident in Chiswick who goes out there and gets things done and then seeks support of the council as a result. And as you said at the beginning there, you've saved the council a lot of paperwork, bureaucracy, and even money by being what you are doing right now. So your mentoring at youth clubs in Duke's Meadow is something that is commendable. I've seen and I've visited you at the supplementary school twice, the one you had in Hounslow and the one at Duke's Meadow. And obviously these are great spaces for learning and also spaces for kind of different experiences, not just education, but also life skills. And as we said to members here, also for adults as well, not just children. So your education supplement is really, really useful, especially for those on low income. You saw that mother saying that, you know, if a kid was in a private school, they would have that supplementary. But because they're not, you are that link between the two. So your action shows the best of us. I mean, I think those are the networks that you talked about. Those are sort of the little platoons that probably some of you guys may have heard of Edmund Burke, who says that, you know, it's the platoons that help the community kind of, you know, come together. So you've done that really well. And so I wanted to just, towards the end, really say, look, your service is priceless, and long may it continue. If anybody watching here or at the screen or watching here in the audience, if you know of anybody who can support us, who can put some money towards this, publications, Chiswick calendar is here as well. If you can do that, that would be great, because you've made such strides since 2005. We want another 25 years of that. Thank you.
No pressure. Rogers, thank you very much. We're very lucky. I mean, I'm councillor in Chiswick Hamefield, so that's where you're based. We're very lucky to have you in our ward. The whole of Chiswick benefits from you as well, and obviously the whole of the borough. So thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to continuing to support the invaluable work that you do. Thank you. Right, so we now move on to agenda item 5, which is the council budget update. So we're going to receive an update on the council's financial position from Jake Backus, who's the Executive Director of Finance and Resources at Hounslow Council, and the leader of the council, Councillor Shantanu Rajawat, who's also the Cabinet Member for Strategy, Resources and External Affairs. He's a man with many hats. Lucky him. So just a bit of context, this used to be a long-standing item at every area forum, and it offers the residents a way to engage with the council's budget setting process and understand the financial decisions that are being taken by the current administration. As chair, I've brought this back. I think currently we're the only area forum in the borough with this update. However, I very much hope that this can be brought back as a long-standing item for other area forums right across the borough, because I think this is a really important way to engage with the council's finances and to make voices heard when it comes to those really, really important decisions. So I think Jake is going to give us an overview of the budget setting process, and then we'll have a quick summary of the proposals that are being made, I think, or maybe not. No. Here to answer questions about the proposals that are being made, from Councillor Rajawat, via questions from the floor and councillors. Jake.
Chair, I'm actually starting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us here and for the invitation. So I'm Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. I'm the leader of the council. As the Chair quite aptly articulated, we're here to talk you through the budget process, some of the considerations that both I have as the political leader of the council and the administration, and then councillors more generally, and Jake can talk through his role as well. So if we move to the, can you do that? I'm not good at ticker and talking.
I knew I was here for a reason.
Yeah. So what is budget setting? So I guess it's important to say from the outset, whilst you digest this, the current 26-27 budget process is ongoing. We're in the sort of business end of that process at the moment, and we're due to be at scrutiny for due consideration of the administration's budget. That will then go on to Cabinet for endorsement, and then final sign-off comes from full council, where the opposition group may have alternatives suggestions, and that gets debated in the round. So while some of that information is in the public domain because of the scrutiny publication deadlines, I'm very happy to answer questions on that. This is more of an overview for you. You will all know that we have a legal requirement to set a balanced budget every year. We cannot not set a balanced budget. And for us, in terms of doing that, we'll talk you through that process in a second, but it all starts at the start of the administration in 2022, where the administration that was elected in majority, in this case the Labour Party, set its strategic direction in what's known as the corporate plan, which we called Ambitious for Hounslow. What you see on the screen, the image that you see on the screen, is one part of that corporate plan, which is the financial plan. There are three documents that make up our corporate plan: the plan itself, the financial plan, how we're going to pay for things, and then delivery, which comes back to Cabinet regularly, and Councillor Thompson, as Leader of the Opposition, has a standing invite to Cabinet and is able to ask questions on that as well. So in a nutshell, what is budget setting? Well, it's that legal process of creating a balanced financial plan. It details how we will raise local income, such as council tax, how we'll spend money on services, how we integrate our financial plans with departmental goals, managing our reserves position, and then long-term financial sustainability. That's within the council, but of course, as a council, we don't work as an island. There are many pressures that come in and challenges and changes that come in throughout the year and throughout the 4 years. So we have to respond to national economic challenges, and it has been a turbulent time in the recent past, but also things like local demand. We know that demand for our services, the pandemic kind of highlighted this in all its starkness, that demand has gone one way in places like social care, homelessness, support children's services, libraries, and many more, responding to inflation and such like. So Jake will articulate that in a little bit more detail, but at a high level, that's what the budget is all about for us as a local authority.
Thank you. I will introduce myself, but thank you, Chair, for introducing me. My name is Jake Backus. I have a number of job titles, I suppose. It's Executive Director of Finance and Resources. I'm also the Chief Finance Officer, and I'm also, what is up on the screen here, the Council's Section 151 Officer, and that's Section 151 of the Local Government Act 1972, I think. That's what it is, just for a bit of nerdy sort of information there. But before I do present that, I will sort of come to your point about area forums in general. We do have a number of sort of set-piece cabinet papers that go forward throughout the year. We present the medium-term financial plan, or what we call the One Hounslow financial strategy, which comes forward in July, and that sets the framework and the sort of macroeconomic environment in which we're working, plus it tries to set some parameters on what we think the local will receive in terms of grants from central government. I think that's the point where that kind of area forum kind of doing the rounds might actually be more worthwhile, because then we've got half a year to actually take on board people's views and put that into the process. But my role under the Section 151 of the Local Government Act, and local authorities cannot operate without one of these, is what you see on the screen here, actually, to effectively drive value for money through the organisation, and that is encapsulated through what we call the 3 E's: economically, efficiently and effectively, making sure money goes to the right places and is spent in the right ways. I am also the person who signs off our accounts, our 30 odd pages worth of local government accounts, which need to be compliant with SIPFA's Code of Practice. Our 24-25 accounts are currently open at the moment and being externally audited. Making sure we have effective control, so governance, making sure things go through in accordance to our financial regulations. If things need to go through Cabinet for the right decision, they go through Cabinet for the right decision, that delegated powers are effectively taken properly and responsibly. The next bullet says it on the tin really, manage the financial affairs of the authority. It doesn't mean I know and authorise every single penny that passes through the authority, but it's discharged through those delegated powers. And anything around lawfulness or unlawfulness that I report that to the council ultimately. And that could be through the external auditor or directly to the council. And what some authorities have to enact is what is called a Section 114 notice, which is about lawfulness or unlawfulness, as the case may be. So I think today we're going to really focus on the general fund, but when we take papers to Cabinet and then to full council for everyone, all members to vote on, it is one of a suite of reports that we have to produce. The general fund and council tax setting, what you'll see in the full council report that goes forward on the 3rd of March is a resolution which sets the council tax, and it's all very, very written in statutes. We have to talk about it in the context of a Band D. We have to talk about it in the context of the council tax base that will go to Cabinet tomorrow, in fact. But what also goes forward is our housing revenue account. So that is the ring-fenced social housing account. Because it's assets, we have to do that in a 30-year basis. So really setting out how we're going to pay for things like regeneration, investing in our existing stock, collect rents, and everything in between. But that has to balance by statute over a 30-year period. Treasury management as well. We have enormous cash inflows and outflows. The government gives us lots and lots of money. We don't just store that under the mattress. We have to put that into responsible investments. A lot of that is through money market funds. We can access it really easily, and all applying security, liquidity and yield in that order to our investments ultimately. Capital strategy, so how we look to invest capital across the borough, building schemes, whether it's leisure centres, whether it's things like money that we receive from TfL to invest in the local borough. And then finally, Lambton business plan as well, which goes through in a slightly circuitous route because it goes through shareholder committee and then cabinet and then council. So they're the big five ultimately. And as you can imagine, my finance team and across the council, we're busy sort of finalising those reports. So as I said, we'll focus on the general fund, which is the bulk of what the day-to-day expenditure is. As I've said, the easiest way to explain it is everything that isn't capital investment and everything that isn't social housing investment. So it does pay for temporary accommodation, social care, parks, waste collection. And it is, as we call it, the general fund. It is for use on universal services, but it is a mix of statutory and discretionary services. So the things we have to do, we have to deliver a legal social care service. We have to deliver a library service. What it doesn't designate is the number of libraries, but you have to deliver that form of service. And as I've said, it's separate from the HRA. So in a nutshell, and there are many ways you can do this, but in the form of a presentation, I thought I would explain how much we spend every year. So we spend roughly £750 million. That is on the general fund, but that also includes our dedicated schools grant as well. So for those who can't see at the back, almost £100 million is on housing benefits. That's money we receive from central government and we passport straight out in what's called a transfer payment out to residents in need. Dedicated schools grant is nearly £150 million. Again, that's passported straight to all of our schools. And there are lots of conversations around how the DSG, whether it's enough to support SEND children in particular. That's a national issue, and the government are committing to resolve that by 2028. You have some smaller areas in there, community strategy, ICP, so that's our relationship with the healthcare NHS ultimately. Within regen housing environment is a big chunk of that is our waste collection service, but also temporary accommodation, some of our what we call general, which is classed as a general fund housing offer. And then you get to the really big line, which is the biggest chunk of our money that we receive is for social care, children's social care, adult social care. And again, what you may have seen in the paper that went forward to Cabinet in July was how the increase in demand from adult social care in particular has led us to need to put around about £8 million per annum growth year on year to support residents. In 2020-2021, it's about £50 million. It's nearer £200 million now. So since COVID, it has grown an enormous amount of money, and we obviously need to support those residents in need, and that is the sector-wide issue that we need to manage. Moving on.
So to bring that to life a little bit in terms of what general fund spend can look like, and this is not an exhaustive list, just to be really clear, but big numbers there. 300 children in the social care system, and that's at varying degrees of need and therefore cost as well, with 7,000 requests for social care support per annum, 1,000 young people with special education needs needing transport, 89 pupils, 89 schools, 48,000 pupils, 110,000 houses receiving a waste service with a cost to that as well, and 500 households in temporary accommodation. That does buck the trend a little bit from the London average. That's one place where we do buck the trend a little bit, but it does give you a sense that there is a need there. And there are so many other areas that you would, when you read the budget reports and everything associated with them, articulate what that looks like in greater detail.
So we've talked about how we spend the money. This is ultimately how we receive the money to spend. Again, attempted to do this in a sort of simplistic way. There's a lot of complexity that sits underneath that. More than half of our money comes from central government, and this is for 25-26, so I'm going to talk about what is going to happen in 26-27, because there is a big change in how government is funding local authorities. About a quarter of that is from council tax. Now that council tax actually is broken down even further into what is the general fund element. So local authorities have the ability to uplift that by 2.99%, that's what the legislation says, and a further 2% to support social care. Now, by way of explanation, as we put £8 million per annum to support residents, that 2% on social care is £3 million. So there is definitely a gap in the system that how the whole budget is set needs to cover. And that's what I mean by making sure we set a balanced budget, making sure we also apply ourselves to the other legal frameworks about statutory services as well. Everything else in there, we collect actually a good few £100 million in business rates. But what you can see is quite a small sliver in that business rates red section. That's because most of the money we collect, we passport to either the GLA or our friends in Treasury, which is then redistributed across the country. We retain a very small single-digit percentage of the business rates that are collected. And then small amounts, we call other grants, ultimately, which are very specific grants like public health and things that we have to ring fence, and we can't spend anything outside of those areas. And then fees and charges and rents on some of our corporate assets.
So to talk a little bit through the actual process, the bit that residents, councillors may well see is the end point at which we set the budget in February this year. It's in March, but actually the process is a year-long process, and we basically set, I always say this, we set the budget, this year will be on the 3rd of March, on the 4th of March we'll be talking about next year's budget, and that framework, as Jake mentioned, in July we take a report, the One Hounslow medium-term financial strategy, through Cabinet to Council to try and get a sense of what is happening in the economy, what those demands, external and internal, are looking like. They don't necessarily offer the answer, but they give us the challenge that we then need to look at for the next few months until we set the budget. We work very collaboratively within the council, so service teams are asked to work together, and it's not just about silos and individual departments working on it, it's about looking at the whole council, what a proposal here might have an impact over there, so how we can mitigate that and work across departments to draft a budget, and it is a draft budget at that point, and there's a lot of work that the council's cabinet does in the background to grapple with some of those, both at a portfolio level, but also collaboratively across the cabinet as well. Once we've got a set of proposals, and this is where we're at this current point in time, those proposals first go to overview and scrutiny, and Chair, you're on the scrutiny committee, so you'll be seeing these and grilling me in a few weeks' time, I'm sure, but they can suggest changes, they can suggest alternatives, and you know, I get a good grilling overview and scrutiny, as does the rest of the Cabinet. That, once we've reflected on those comments and any amendments that may well be required, goes to Cabinet for formal approval, and it's Cabinet that refers the budget to full council, because full council is the only body under our constitution that can set the budget for the whole council, and that's what you will see on the 3rd of March. And of course, in the background, Jake's professional job is also then to write a report that is independent of us as politicians, that talks about the financial sustainability of the council. And once that's all set, as Jake did describe, there is a whole audit process of our accounts as well, and assurance that is given. So that runs whilst the next budget is being discussed as well. So it's a long process. It takes a lot of time, a lot of thinking, but it is very, very collaborative, both between the politicians and the officers, and individually as well.
Thank you. So I referred to changes in local government landscape, and this is a big change, and it's possibly one of the biggest changes in probably 20 years in the way that local authorities are funded, or individual local authorities are funded. And you may have seen this in the news and in what is called Fair Funding 2.0. I think 1.0 didn't quite make it into my hands ultimately as a Section 151 officer. But what the government has committed, and the previous government's committed to, was resetting how individual local authorities are funded. It is a zero-sum game, so there is no more money in the local government sector. But what the Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, I'll get that in the right order next time, I always refer it to CLG ultimately. They've gone through a really long exercise to refresh all of the underpinning metrics and deprivation metrics and cost metrics that actually drive an individual's grant. If you saw that, almost that 54% in the previous pie chart. It has been long noted that the current way that we've been funded, actually the metrics that are used are very, very outdated. The last time they were updated was in 13-14, and we've had a number of global incidents, let alone local incidents, that have driven some of those changes in the metrics. And as I've said, you know, there has been a change, as I've said, about the doubling and almost tripling of those costs in social care. All of that has to get factored into how we'll be funded from 26-27. The cost of living in London is more expensive than it is in Birmingham, for example. That needs to be built into the position. And how deprivation is measured has changed enormously. One of the things that the government has made very, very clear in their intention is that by the end of what is a 3-year cycle, so the other thing is what we receive in fair funding, we'll know for 26, 27, 7, 8 and 8, 9. And again, it's the first time in my sort of senior professional career that we've had a multi-year settlement. So when we produce our July paper next year, we'll have a lot more certainty about how we can distribute that resource without having to rely on conjecture and professional conjecture, which is what we've had to do over the last few years. But what the government have said is, at the moment, they want to make sure that the funding and deprivation are much more closely correlated by the end of that 3-year period. And they produce a set of metrics and R-squared data that actually, in their view, this fair funding addresses. Whether that happens or not is up to us now as local government in our discharge of our duties to make sure that money goes to the places where that deprivation needs to be tackled. There we go. So, as I've said, how will it change? Needs assessment. It's called a relative needs formula. There used to be more than a dozen, and I think they've reduced that now to about 4. Adult social care, deprivation, population. I can't remember the other one actually, I have to say, but it is what IMD, things like children's services and those sort of things that government uses. As I said, costs. It is more expensive to live in Hounslow than it is anywhere outside the M25. Equally, it's more expensive to live in Westminster than it is to live in Hounslow. So those area cost adjustments are made in the dividing of the pie. And then finally, local resources. That's effectively how much money the government assumes we can raise through council tax. And they set a notional England council tax rate. They assume we'll collect all of the council tax, 100%, which I think is probably a bit ambitious. I think ours, as you'll see in the council tax base paper tomorrow, we collect about 98.25 actually, which is quite a high level of collection actually. In previous places, it's been in the mid-95s actually. So we are quite good at collecting council tax, but it's still not 100%. But they're the things that the government assume. So we have to make sure we're managing within that framework that is set for us. And then finally, what is next? It's phased over 3 years. The legislation around council tax is set. It hasn't changed for Hounslow. It has changed for some authorities. There are 6 authorities in the country where that legislation has been removed, and they happen to be in central London. We are a net gainer from fair funding, and that net gain is actually the recognition from all of those metrics I've described, and I'll talk to that in a second. And as I said, we are working through that and reflecting that in the budget. It's worth noting that we received the provisional settlement for fair funding on the 17th of December. So we've had to work through the complexities of that at quite quick pace to understand what that actually means for the budget and what that means for residents. And I wanted to sort of say we're not an island. What you can see here is how fair funding is impacting the sector. This is quite a simplified version of the different types of authorities. We are outer London, and you can see actually in all of that fair funding assessment, outer London is the area where the metrics used actually allow central government to apply funding to follow that need. And Hounslow, we're probably one of the more sort of higher end, upper quartile in terms of how that funding will flow. You can also see inner London there as well, quite a big, what is a real terms reduction in their funding over the next 3 years. If you were to look back at 2013-14, that deprivation was really sort of in inner London, and what we've seen through a range of demographic changes over the last 10 plus years, people can't afford to live in central London, they move out, and that flows, and we have to make sure that the funding is always pointed to the people where the residents live. And as you can see, ultimately England, there's an increase over 3 years. All things considered, there are other things in there, but ultimately there's a 15% increase. And then finally, what does that mean in terms of setting a balanced budget, which brings us back to our legal obligations? What is going to Overview and Scrutiny Committee are a number of savings in a number of categories, which add up to just above £26 million. Next year, that fair funding, what that means is we are going to receive, on top of what we thought we were going to receive in our estimations in July, an additional £21 million. Beyond that, in years 2 and 3 of that 3-year settlement, we receive another roughly £20 million year on year. So by the end of the 3-year cycle, our what we call core spending power should be £60 million more than what we have received today. So obviously that allows us to balance the budget over the next 3 years, but certainly next year, that means that we have the obligation to appoint that money to deprivation, which is what's expected of us. But it does actually give us, or give me, I suppose, through what the leaders described as my personal responsibility to talk about the resilience in the council's finance. I think we can probably say that this gives us some green shoots to be able to replenish some of the reserves position that has been depleted over the last 3-4 years. It's just shy of the 49 million at the moment, and I will say by the time we get to Overview and Scrutiny, we'll be able to hit that line through. There's very rare that a chief finance officer is sort of glass half full. I think it's worth saying that I probably am at this stage. Clicking the wrong thing. And as we said, there are a number of things we have to go through. We are at the position where we've gone through the provisional settlement. Is another thing it's worth saying actually. On the 17th of December, the provisional settlement was announced. It won't be until after we've set the budget through Cabinet that we'll get from government the final settlement. So there may be some changes, but I'll have to deal with those changes through delegated powers because there's nothing else I can do about that through the way that our constitution is set. 26th of Jan, scrutiny, and then 10th and the 3rd of March is the big one where we as members, more to the point, set that budget.
So just to close that loop, and there may well be questions on specific proposals because they are in the public domain. Broadly speaking, the budget, as Jake described in that previous slide with the green and the grey bar, the fair funding result is a small portion of that. The green bit in that chart is proposals that we will be taking forward to scrutiny. Broadly, we're looking at trying to maximise income wherever possible, be as efficient as a council internally, transforming services. So, the corporate plan talks about ambition for Hounslow. That's about really thinking about the service offer going forward for residents. And you would have seen, we are one of very few councils that is keeping all of our libraries open, and we've turned them into community hubs, offering services where residents are. That's what transformation for me looks like, although that's a very small example. But also, we understand that for residents, services are incredibly important. So this budget doesn't propose that we will be ceasing any services. Transformation is one part of it, but nothing will stop outright. And that's something that for me, strategically, when I talk to Jake, is incredibly important because I see the evidence of the value of those services to our residents. So I hope that was helpful, Chair. Very happy to take questions.
Brilliant. Jake and Shantini, thank you very much. We'll go to the floor first for questions. I'm going to be bombarded with hands, yes. Can we go to maybe Bridget first, because you didn't speak on the last one, and then we'll come to the front here.
Hello, I'm a journalist. I edit the Chiswick calendar. I'm a generalist. I have no clue about finance and even less about local authority finance. So Jake, it's really nice to get the opportunity to ask you, because I never believe what politicians say. The opposition say it's all dire and dreadful and it's terrible and we're on the verge of bankruptcy. The people in power say, oh, it's all right, it's fine, don't worry about it, it's all wonderful. And somewhere in the middle there's an objective truth, which I'm hoping you will give me. Because I understand that, the Lambton Group might not have been such a great idea and is or is not, I don't know, you tell me, draining reserves in a bad way. And that we've taken some money out of reserves. How much over the last year or last few years, I'm not sure. But at what point is it perilous? Is it a really bad thing? Because, the council, Chantilly, will tell you, well, you've all got mortgages, we're just borrowing because we have to do things, we need to build houses, it'll be fine. We'll rent them out, we'll get the income, don't worry about it.
Thank you. So, as I've said, Hounslow isn't an island. I do a lot of work to benchmark and compare, and I say comparison is the worst thing you can possibly do, but I do a lot of comparison with our friends across London in terms of what you mean by how close we are to the perilous position. It's fair to say there have been enormous challenges in Hounslow over the last, and across the sector actually, over the last few years, absolutely exacerbated by really high inflation. Just by way of example, 1% of inflation adds about £4 million of cost to the council, cost that is lost. Inflation is the worst possible thing. You can't row it back in any way. Inflation at the moment is 3-point-something percent, 3.2, 3.3. It's more than 1% above the 2% Bank of England target. So immediately, that's £4 million we have to think about, or I have to think about, in terms of how we manage going forward. When you look at London, the largest number of local authorities that have had to reach out to central government for support, which is called exceptional financial support, which is the way that the government allows local authorities to bridge their budget gap through borrowing. A lot of those, there are 7 that are already in the public domain. 6 of those are general fund, 1 of those is the HRA. I know, and I'm not going to reveal those because it's for those local authorities themselves to reveal another 3 in London that will need to have exceptional financial support. We are not one of those. It's fair to say that you can see in the report that I write, which is what is called the Section 25 report of, again, Local Government Act, I have to talk about 2 things. 1, adequacy of reserves, and 2, adequacy of the estimates in our budget setting, so I don't artificially reduce the budget just to balance it. Within that report for 25-26, you will have read, or at least I hope the intention was, that our reserves were very, very low and have reduced significantly. If you look at our reserves reducing and actually overlaid inflation on top of that same graph, you could see there's an inverse proportionality on that. Those authorities that have gone into EFS didn't have a reserve level as resilient as ours were at the beginning, so we've had something to go into. Those authorities haven't, they've gone below that 0 line. What we have, and I guess, fair funding has come at the perfect time for us, is the ability to balance next year's budget with minimal use of reserves. I can't say 0 at this stage because we're waiting for that final settlement to come through. But absolutely not the £28 million of reserves we had to use to balance 25-26. My train of thought was, and so I think, in that report, you saw that we had to apply that £8 million per annum onto social care in particular, and a number of other things we had to capture. Fair funding has come through. That's given us a ability to be stable in 25-26. There is absolutely no complacency. We have to deliver those savings if they're approved. And what I need to do through the mechanisms with officers and members is make sure they're delivered. Obviously, fair funding is a big help to us, but over the next in years 2 and 3 of that 3-year settlement, knowing that it will go up, that fair funding position will go up by £60 million, is we need to put more money into reserves and build up for whatever that next rainy day might be. The world is a bit topsy-turvy at the moment. There are things that we cannot control. You know, today we're talking about tariffs. I have no idea how that might impact the economy, but we have to make sure we put some provision aside. Equally, reserves for investment, and those investments that can actually generate a return on that investment and generate savings, absolutely we want to make sure we've got provision for that as well. But in terms of whether we need to apply for EFS, exceptional financial support, next year, I can say with probably more confidence than I could when I wrote that July report that we should be avoiding that, absolutely. I never give anything in absolutes. I am a chief finance officer, but it is increasingly unlikely we'll need to have that government support.
Thanks, Jake. I think Sam was next, then we'll come. Yes, yeah.
Am I allowed 2 questions? Can make them quite quick.
Go on.
What proportion of Hounslow schools, the council-run schools, what proportion of those are running deficit budgets for this year? And the second question is, does the fact that we've been eating into the reserves for the last few years, does that indicate we're not very good at setting budgets, or that we have, in reality, been setting illegal budgets? Or should have been setting illegal budgets?
We haven't been setting illegal budgets. The setting a budget allows you to use reserves to set that balanced budget. So that's not an issue, in my view. Well, that's not an issue by law, actually, I have to say. In terms of the number of schools that are in deficit, I think an increasing number of schools. Do you mind if I come back to you with that answer? Because I probably need to go through my records and get you that answer. What is happening? Sorry? Yeah. There's an increasing number as well, because what you'll see in the budget report and I think in the July report as well, there is a risk around schools' budgets. There is a falling school roll, and money flows through the dedicated schools grant on a per pupil basis. There aren't as many pupils as there were a number of years ago, but there's still a building to have to manage, whether it's in terms of utilities costs, business rates, etc. So the sector, whether we're both in Hounslow and across the country with those falling rolls, needs to do something to make sure those deficits can be brought back into line. But at the moment is a risk. But it's not a risk that is crystallised yet, because there is a path out over the medium term.
And if I may add to that, I don't want to make this a political discussion, but we know that inflation has been high over the last couple of years, as Jake kind of articulated. That adds cost to us in the same way it does every single person in this room, and that is a level of complexity. Demand has only gone one way, Councillor Hearn. So, in many respects, whilst we can talk about what we do with reserves, I'm really grateful for the fact that we had those reserves to be able to smooth out some of those pressures, because otherwise it would have been a lot more difficult. And that's taken a lot of work, that's taken a lot of planning over the years. And as Jake mentioned in response to the last question, there is absolutely a plan to replenish that. So whenever that next rainy day comes, at least we are resilient. And that wasn't even a political point, was it? No, it's just a point, isn't it? Yeah.
Well done.
Can I answer the number of schools in deficit balances? It's 17 is the answer. Out of, I think we had it in the slides here, actually. Yeah.
17 out of 89.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We're going to keep on. Can we go to the lady there, just in the second row first? Yes.
This is just a very quick one. In line with your 3-year plan, I'm going to take it as that, with this new Wayfair funding, has there been a gap analysis assessment included of improvements in all the areas you've mentioned, waste management, children's size, schools and that lot, that's being included in your projected budget spend? That's what I want to know. And if not, why not? So that could be inclusive of how we automate the services, improve and create efficiencies, be it resources or services provided, and look at ways of bringing accuracy and things like that into the works that services you provide.
Yeah, thanks. So in terms of the gap, what will go to scrutiny, and no doubt it will be mentioned tonight as well, is an answer to that question, or an attempted answer about being much more efficient about delivering those services. And that is manifested in that £26 million savings item that will go to scrutiny and ultimately through full council to approve. But that 26 million is, I think it's 30 plus individual savings lines of different values ultimately, from large to small, to address the point that you're making, and that with fair funding is what allows us to balance the budget. But it's never a one-stop thing. It's a constant cycle of challenging ourselves to make sure we can use technology where we can, where AI is a burgeoning technology. We need to be making sure we can use that effectively, but also ethically. And there's a lot of grey area around that, but there's also, but AI will happen whether we like it or not, so we need to make sure we're harnessing that in the right way.
Gentleman in the white shirt, Paul.
Thank you. This is one for Mr. Rajawat. As Bridget mentioned, you wrote robustly in the Chiswick calendar that your loans to Lambton were like a house mortgage, and I wondered if you could tell us where we can get hold of one of these mortgages. 46 years without having to pay anything back, 120% of asset value that you lend against. If I can't afford to pay the interest, you'll lend me that too. And in fact, if I can't afford to pay my creditors, you'll fund those as well through your letter of support. I thought Lambton was meant to be at arm's length, an arm's length company. Well, it seems to me that these are jolly short arms. I'm sure that you'll say, well, this is great social funding, but the only way that you can, and the only way you say that you're going to repay, or that Lambton is going to repay the funding by the council, is through selling off the housing that you've funded with this $250 million that you've spent in the last 5 years. And that seems to me to be smoke and mirrors. Either this is social housing, in which case the tenants stay put, or you repay the loans by evicting them and selling the properties with vacant possession. You can't do both. Which is it?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. So, look, you're taking a very short-term view on Lambton, and
46 years isn't that short.
I listened to your question. Would you mind listening to the response? Thank you. So I think you are taking a short-term view on that. The point that I was making to the Chiswick calendar is that all of that money that has been loaned is backed up by the asset. The asset exists there. Whether social tenants come in and out of those properties, that's a natural churn that happens, but there is still income coming in from that. What you will see, as was mentioned by Jake in his presentation, one of the reports that will be presented as part of the budget is the Lambton business plan. Now, that's still going through its process, and that will have final sign-off through the shareholder committee and then cabinet before coming to council. But that doesn't hide where the pressure is. It doesn't hide that they have that is held on their balance sheet, and they will have to balance their books, and they will have to show us that plan, and that is my role as shareholder. Do you want to add anything to that?
Can we come to the chap in the blue jumper next, and then...
Presentation. Oh, it is. Thank you for the presentation. It's I'm not a financial expert, but it's interesting and it's good to have that overview. You mentioned about benchmarking against similar councils and similar bodies around the area. Things like we're all aware of the sort of like the adult social care thing has expanded rapidly in the last 5 years. Are we seeing a similar percentage in our area as it is in Ealing or Richmond or Hammersmith or wherever else around us?
We are seeing, thank you, we are seeing the rate of increase is similar, but that rate of increase has come from a lower base, so it's actually, there's a thing called a use of resources, which is what this adult social care sector produces, and it assessed us as being quite lean in the operation of adult social care. So when I said we spent about £50 million on a net basis per annum 5 years ago, it was a lot more than that in other authorities, our neighbouring authorities, but that rise has been quite steep and actually in line with what the sector is producing in terms of that need, that complexity of care. So what we need to do ultimately, is make sure we support people to be independent ultimately. There are things that we need to do. We are very much closely tied with the private sector, for example, about delivering social care placements. And one of the things that has been agreed recently is to build our own ultimately, so we're not exposed to those profits that sit on top of the spend that you see there.
In your 3-year plan, I think you've raised council taxes 4.99% for the last 2 years. In your 3-year plan, is it 4.99% by coincidence? Is it higher or is it lower?
The maximum it can be raised by is 4.99. It's capped.
Sorry, I did mean 4.99.
Yeah, so it's 2% on...
Yeah, I understand the fact maths. Yeah. In the 3-year plan, what is in as an assumption for council tax increases?
So the 3-year plan is going to be refreshed and taken to Cabinet.
I understand, but you're the finance executive, so what are you currently putting in, or haven't you done it yet?
So for next year, the government, that will be for members to decide whether council tax is taken. What I'm putting into the budget is the government's expectation of that council tax rise, but it's not for me to decide. In years 2 and 3, when you see that paper come through in February, it will be 0% because it will be for members to make that decision. There will be a budget gap that comes through.
Okay, I get the process. Yeah. You're in charge of the finances. You're the finance director. Yeah. What are you recommending is going in as the council? I know they'll say 0%, do what you like, mate, but will you be putting it at 1.9, 2.9 or 10.9?
Yeah, I would recommend the full council tax rise.
So it's a full council tax rise.
That is my recommendation.
For the next 3 years and probably the next 30.
To keep up with prices, as I've said, 4.99...
Prices are less than 4.9.
No, but 2.99% is what the actual general fund increase is. Right. And as I said, inflation is more than that at the moment.
Let's take a few more from the audience, then we'll come to councillors, then we go back to the audience. So, Max, there.
Councillor Chantanou, given you weren't able to attend the full council meeting in December, I'm sure you'll be grateful for the opportunity to answer this question. Could you explain to me a bit about the Labour Council's decision to reject proposals for greater scrutiny of Hounslow Finances and the Lambton Group? Do you agree their openness or accountability are key principles in public life? And if so, why was an exception made in December?
It wasn't an exception. I think there's plenty of scrutiny of both our finances. I think we've described some of that today in terms of the budget. That's what overview scrutiny is a public meeting, Cabinet's a public meeting. You've got an opposition representative on the Cabinet, you've got an opposition representative over in scrutiny, and I don't get an easy ride from my own councillors, and members of the public can feed into that. They can email me, contact me. I'm available to answer any questions. It's absolutely right that the shareholder committee is also held in public. and that is a a meeting in public, not a public meeting. So I'm unclear, unfortunately, and this is, I'm afraid, a political difference between myself and the proposer of the motion. As far as I was concerned, that smoke and mirrors trying to suggest that there isn't scrutiny. There is absolute scrutiny on that. And by the way, everything that we do goes to an external auditor who looks at our work and gives us an opinion. And that goes to the Audit and Governance Committee, which is also a public meeting which has members on it. If you've got concerns, please feel free to email any member of those committees, the chair or myself, and we'll happily get it raised.
I will maintain my chair's neutrality in the face of that. We'll come to a couple of councillors and then we'll come back to the audience. So I assume everyone's hand is going to go up, but I'll come to Councillor Todd first.
Yeah, thanks very much. Bridget mentioned the word Lambton, Mr. Backus, and you didn't mention one word. So can I ask two questions, if I could, Chair, please? I want to go back to Lambton. A matter of facts, would you agree that the accumulated loss of that group is £15.7 million?
Yes.
Okay. Now that's a lot of money. You've talked about elsewhere about a new plan coming out next month in February, showing within 3 years it will go back into profit.
No.
All right. Well,
on
you explain what.
Sorry. On a year-by-year basis, it's planned to move to profit to reduce the 15.7, but it won't remove the 15.7. That is going to take a longer. That would be a longer-term piece of work to be done.
Okay. Can I move on briefly to school budgets? Normally, the budgets are in many millions of pounds, and I've never seen a deficit like it is now. Now, that's indicative of the schools. I'm a former school governor. Many schools keep their capital projects in their balances so they can use it as and when. Would you agree that paints a very serious position? And I'd like to challenge your suggestion that it's the lack of pupils in the borough that is linked to that figure. I think the number of pupils are down by less than 500. That wouldn't explain a drop of budgets between 25 million and a zero figure. I'd like you to comment on that.
So I didn't catch the sort of numbers that you said, but you're saying that there's another reason why funding, why schools are in deficit.
Okay, yeah. The school balances, the significant debit balances you alluded to me is very serious. It means the schools can't work on what they've got. And you haven't addressed that really. But I think it's made worse because, as I said earlier, many schools, the balances have horrified me sometimes, £25 million, but you need to realise, sorry I'm repeating myself now, that they store money up for their big capital projects so that it's reflected in that balance. But I'm just trying to highlight to you and the leader, it seems our school's in a rather perilous situation, and I'm not quite sure how you're addressing it.
So we took this position to Schools Forum, I think before Christmas, to explain exactly the seriousness of that and how we can support schools through the delegated powers, because the funds are delegated through the delegated schools grant. We have powers, the council has powers, I have powers to step in and actually centrally manage budgets for schools. But what is happening at the moment is there's a wide range of support for governors to understand their funding a lot more, to see where they can find some savings within their position. But you're absolutely right, and it is on the risk register that goes to Audit and Governance Committee, that increasing deficit balance for schools that we need to look at.
Have you allocated any emergency funds to that?
Not allocated yet, but what the process we're going through is giving the giving schools the ability to apply for emergency funding. But it's really important to note that it's not the general fund should not be subsidising schools, because the way that the schools funding system works needs to be kept in place. So there are school support officers that help help schools try and reduce their spend where they can.
Councillor Croft.
Thank you. Are we doing anything to reduce the demand? Because we talked about in a number of areas there is increased demand. Was looking at trying to reduce the demand moving forward long-term part of the consideration?
It always is, and that has to be balanced against actual need at that given point in time. In terms of reducing demand, we talked about technology and giving people the ability to have systems in their own homes so they can access that, and those systems can actually contact a loved one so they can have that direct family link without a social worker going into their home, because they might not want that, and that's what is called Disabled Facilities Grant. That allows us to apply that to people in need. That's one example. We've talked about technology in general through AI, and there's a number of things that are happening right across the sector to support people. But it's not just AI in terms of residents' homes, it's how we can use AI to actually forecast and project when someone might actually be susceptible to a fall. One of the biggest things that is happening in Hounslow in particular is falls, and how falls generate into social care need is something we haven't quite tackled yet. That flow of how do we identify someone who's had a minor fall and stop that becoming something much more major. I think if we can tackle that one particular item, that could go some way to reducing spend, but also giving residents an independent life without the need for other people to support them.
And if I may sort of focus on prevention. So Jake described in social care, which is absolutely the right thing to do, and we're working much more closely with health colleagues than ever before. But you'll recall in the presentation I talked about community hubs. So all of our libraries are now community hubs. Now, they're not just spaces where people can go, there are spaces where we provide services, and our partners in the voluntary sector also provide services, support, advice, because we know when people fall into crisis, it generally will cost more for us and for the services that have to wrap around them as well. And we've invested a little bit of money with the Citizens Advice Bureau, for example, and they've supported a number of people. But just to give you a sort of a stat in terms of the benefit to residents, they estimate, that roughly in terms of their debt advice and benefit maximisation, they put about £11 million back into residents' pockets. And that took, what, a £3 million investment from us? Is it about 3 million? Yeah, about £3 million. That's delivered a benefit, not for us as a council, directly to residents, and hopefully that means that they're not accessing as many of the services that they once were, and that's really important.
Councillor Biddulph.
Thank you. Every year for the last few years I've been photographed with other councillors in the council chamber wearing white ribbons, showing our support, our collective wish to work to eliminate violence against women and girls. And I've spoken also about the need to eliminate violence against men and boys. What I didn't know when I stood in the photograph in November last year was that behind the scenes there were moves to cut the budget of the domestic violence team. So I feel duped, and I feel that residents were duped. It feels to me like it was a PR stunt to give an impression of one thing whilst cuts were being made. Please, could you tell us what the cuts are for this year and to come, and what the impact will be on people who are experiencing violence, domestic abuse? Thank you.
So I'll start, and Jake might have some of the technical on this. So I think, firstly, let me say, Councillor Biddulph, I share your passion for this topic. I've been designated the council's white ribbon champion, and do absolutely champion this. I think it's important to note that the funding for the service wasn't council funding. It was funding from the NHS, and that, Home Office, beg your pardon, from the Home Office, that was due to come to an end, was it 2 years ago? So we did extend it up until this year. And I mentioned as part of the end of the presentation, thinking about transforming services, what I'm what we're not proposing is getting rid of the service. The service will change. There will be different people offering that service. We understand how important it is. And I also take on board your point around violence against boys and men as well. That won't change, but it will be offered in a different way, just accounting for the fact that the funding is no longer there. Do you have any more detail to that?
I was going to answer just a more general point. Every line item ultimately has to be equality impact assessed, essentially. So all of those items, all of those line items that you see, there is an assessment on what impact that would have for residents general, residents specific. But if the Home Office has stopped our funding, we have to manage that somehow locally.
So I don't understand how, if there are going to be cuts, and you haven't given the figures that I asked for, what's the cut for this year and what's the cut for the successive years and next year, whatever it is. I don't see how, if you're offering it in a different way, it's going to cost less. Can you explain how you're coping with reduced budgets? And as I said, please give us the figures.
So I'm not proposing that we're cutting the service. The funding is disappearing from the Home Office funding. We match fund it, and now we've got to change the way we offer that service. So that process of transforming the service and looking at it in a different way is ongoing currently, acknowledging the fact that that service. So, I mean, I can get more details to you, Councillor Biddulph, in advance of scrutiny. Very happy to do that, but it isn't. We're not stopping the service, so it's not a cut.
A cut doesn't mean a stop, it means a reduction. I thought there were figures in the budget, 180,000 this year and 330 next, I think. Have we misunderstood, is that misrepresented in the budget papers?
So I don't have the papers here. Can I, it is an important point and we need to get it right, so can I come back to you and all members on this committee? In fact, I'll make it available for Council. Very happy to.
Councillor Gill, and then we'll take some more from the floor as well.
Thank you, Chair. Jake, if I recall, you said something about fair funding, that it's come at the right time. So are you saying, I mean, this is something new. I presume this has been proposed by the current government, which wasn't done by previous governments. Is that right?
Correct.
Right. So which in turn, I suppose, is sharing the pie equally between councils that need more for deprivation and those that don't need so much, which in itself results us using minimum reserves for our budget, which is a plus point. And also you said that we hope to have 6 million reserves in the future to carry on for the future. And you also confirmed that we do not need, hopefully we do not need any EFS, which is the exceptional financial support, unlike our neighbour Hillingdon. Is that right?
I'm not going to talk about Hillingdon in particular, it's for them to talk about themselves, but you'll obviously see what's in the public domain. We're not in that position. I said I'm not going to talk about them, I just did.
Didn't want to put you on the spot.
Yes, no, that's okay. I just don't. It's not fair for me to have to speak for other local authorities.
Well, that is in the public domain anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So, fair funding has come at the right time. I think that's serendipity. I think from the conversation that I've had with MHCLG over a number of years, the metrics being used to drive fair funding were devised actually a number of years ago for a range of reasons not implemented. And I think the speed at which the government sort of implemented sort of highlights actually that there was some ready-made kind of work ultimately that could be driven through the system. What this government has done is updated some of that data to be as up to date as possible. So index of multiple deprivation, it's based on the 2025 figures, for example. They've updated it on housing, so that's what's driven some of our numbers up.
So it is beneficial for us, really?
It's beneficial for us, as I've said, over the next 3 years, we'll receive an additional £60 million. Within that £60 million is the government's assessment that we do raise council tax. If we don't raise council tax, it will be less than that. But that's the way that the government and previous governments have set out what is called core spending power. But ultimately, that does give us the ability to put ourselves on a positive financial footing over the medium term.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the floor? Lyndon.
Hello, evening. As a component of the general fund was fees and charges. Are you able to just set out some examples of what those fees and charges are, just for general interest?
I can.
And also, if I might be cheeky and ask a sort of second part, do you think it's likely, considering in other areas there are limits on the increases, for example, in council tax, do you think it's likely that those fees and charges are going to go up above inflation in terms of rises?
Yeah. So examples of fees and charges, parking fees are the obvious ones. What other fees and charges do we have? Planning fees, for example. Burials, yeah, so all of that sort of comes together in that sort of sliver of that pie chart. The principle that underpins fees and charges are cost recovery. So the cost of the service is covered by the income received. That doesn't mean you naturally just put income in to cover the cost. It means we should be challenging the spend to make sure we can reduce income uplifts as far as we possibly can. That is the definition of commercial. But the other principle that underpins fees and charges is that the people who use the services that generate that fee are the people who pay for it. So it's not ultimately not subsidised by council taxpayers who may not use any of the services that I've described. So it becomes a very kind of framed box, essentially. People who use it are the people who pay for it, and then we obviously deliver that service.
So when you see the fees and charges report, a majority of them are cost recovery. So we can't go over and above what the actual cost is. So as Jay said, we need to be as agile as possible, making sure those costs are correct.
The other thing is that some of the fees and charges are nationally set. So licensing fees, for example, up until now, planning fees were nationally set, which obviously, when you've got the cost of delivering a service in London is more than what the uplift was, you end up having a delta created that was ultimately then subsidised by the council taxpayer.
Any other floor questions before we come back to councillors? Yes, lady at the back.
There is always so much discussion and debate on Lambton. I don't know the reason why it was spun off in the first place, but at the end of the day, what they're doing is providing services that would normally be provided by the council. Why don't you just provide those services and cut Lambton out of it? Because I think we're going to have discussion going on for years about, does it make losses, doesn't it, is it good value for money? It's smoke and mirrors and rather pointless, actually. Don't you agree?
Well, unfortunately, I don't agree because we've got Lambton and I'm committed to it in the going forward. If I may, I will answer. So Lambton was created as a telecom company. There is a commercial element to it. You're absolutely right to say that it offers services that ordinarily the council would do. The benefit of a telecom company is you don't have to go through long procurement processes as you would have to do putting a service out into the private sector. But also, to give you an example, in waste and recycling, there's the standard waste and recycling that we all consume, but they do also have a commercial arm that does business collections as well, which generates some money as well, and there is more of that to come in future years, and that any surplus to that will come back to the shareholder, i.e. us, which is helpful. It hasn't done it yet, and that's a fair challenge, but that's when we talked about earlier the business plan, looking at the next 3 years, a lot more of that to follow. The alternative to that is you go through lengthy procurement processes, put it out to the private sector, and I believe that you lose a lot of control, so we can be much more directive with Lambton in terms of services issues that arise as part of the agreements with us between the council and Lambton. And ultimately, actually, I would implore you to look at some of the reports that Lambton have produced in terms of the metrics, in terms of customer satisfaction and the service offered as well. That is the other aspect to it, not taking away from the financial discussions that we will continue having, but they do provide a good service, and residents do feel the benefit of that. Well, I mean, it's shown in independent surveys.
I think some of us question the independent surveys.
I didn't see any other hands, so Paul, I will very generously give you a second question, if it's quick.
Very quick one. Councillor Rajawat said that he was committed to scrutiny on the shareholder committee for Lambton, and I just wondered, therefore, why at the last shareholder committee meeting in November, December, not one single question was asked about the finances of Lambton.
You were clearly sat at a very different meeting to me, because we did ask questions and they're minuted. So
not financial questions.
There were financial questions. We were talking about sustainability, financial stability over the short term. Was I at a different meeting, Jake? You were there. You were there.
There before Christmas. No, shareholder.
Probably forgotten.
Oh, I'm sure the minutes will answer that question definitively.
We can look back at the
look at the footage.
Yeah, well, there's no footage, but councillors, Peter.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I think I used to travel around the borough doing similar things, and it's not an easy task. And trying to explain local government funding again is not without its problems. So well done. That was a good, I think, clear layperson's. Let's not mention last week's shambles. No, it's fine, but it's a tricky area. I think what residents are always generally, shocked to understand is often the issues that we get cross about, the potholes, the pavements, is such a small little bit, isn't it, of that budget. It's a small percentage, but not that we can't do more in that area. I suppose it's more an observation. It must have been a blessed relief to get that extra funding. As you very clearly said, it's not more money, it's just the same pie, they've just cut it up, and for once it benefits Hounslow, and it's not benefiting next door and the ones up there and them lot, and they're all cross for various reasons. And I suppose we are relieved too, because if it wasn't for that, we'd be having to find another 20 million of savings and reprovisioning this, that and the other, and the rest of it. And it's just really a thought that over my 25 years on the council and awareness of local government funding, we've always, whoever was in government, we've always complained about, we don't get enough and it's not fair. And yet, every year we make millions and millions of savings, and yet every year we're still here providing great services. And half the time, Councillor, you're telling us how marvellous Hounslow is, which just makes me think that historically, our sector, over the years, decades before my time, before my birth probably, must have wasted so much public money. Because every year we can cut and cut and cut, and every year we're perilously close, and we're on the pinnacle, aren't we? We're about to go over, and we have. You're right. In London, there's 8 authorities, aren't there? I think seeking, and they're of all political persuasions. They're mainly one political persuasion, because that's the politics of London, isn't it? But councils struggle. There are councils who have generally made big mistakes, and they've bought shopping centres that they shouldn't have and cocked up left, right and centre. We're not one of those. It seems like it might work this year. We have to look into the detail. And obviously the question earlier about domestic violence just shows that sometimes, as an opposition party, it's a bit of a challenge, because literally all there is a line or two of writing. So we have to ask the questions. At least we have a bit of time. I can remember, before your time on the council, we got the budget papers on the morning of the debate, which was great fun. So at least we will complain about lack of scrutiny and whatever, but I recognise we do have a few months. So I suppose what I'm trying to say in a roundabout sort of way is that, you know, we all want Hounslow to succeed. It benefits none of us if we fail. I'm trying to be magnanimous. So I won't be like this at Borough Council in March. I'll be getting feisty and political. But this is a real challenge. So I'm delighted. But I suppose there's the sort of question here. We can't allow the wonderful generosity, the unexpected generosity of government at other people's cost to cover up the fact that there are issues with Hounslow and our funding. We do have a large deficit. We have, and we debated this last year in Borough Council, we had to tap into the reserves. I suppose, yeah, we're thankful that they're there, but why did we have to? And again, we can argue the toss backwards and forwards on this. So moving forward, I think, again, I always make this point somewhere in the process, across all parties these days, somebody has to finally look at and sort out local government funding. And while we're at it, let's also try and sort out adult social care funding and also school funding. I think, as Councillor Todd said, it's not particularly a population issue in Hounslow, but when you increase national insurance contributions, energy costs, pension contributions, 80% of what schools spend is on staffing. It's paying people like me. So it's wonderful to get a pay rise, but there is a price to it, which is there's less money in the pot to educate the kids. So, you know, politics to one side, cross-party for once, and we can do it, can't we, occasionally. But there just needs to be a serious attempt to try and actually recognise for once what we want local government to do and give local government the fundraising capacity or not to do the vital work. And it frustrates me no end, I'm sure it frustrates you no end, when folks ask you about the potholes and the trees and that sort of thing, the things that are tangible and do impact on our lives. And thank God, at the moment in time, I'm not relying on adult social care. I'm not relying on, send transport, but I know people do. But we don't see that aspect of the council's work, do we? So I don't think there's a question there. I think it's a bit of a waffle. You've mentioned a couple of times that I do get invited to cabinet, and I am thankful for that. Just to say in advance, I won't be there tomorrow. Please don't criticise me for that in the meeting. But it's the school play of Frozen. I wish our council tax could be frozen, but maybe that's for another debate at another time. Thank you.
If I could just very quickly just reflect on that, I think, thank you, Councillor Thompson. I think that's a fair summation, actually, of where we are. I think we will always grapple with an ageing population, demand going up for essential services, costs going up. We live in a globalised world, so everything costs something, and that cost only goes one way and never goes down, as we all know. And I think for me, Jake said fair funding came at the right time. For me, it addresses a historic wrong, and it doesn't get rid of everything. I think there's still going to be pressures there, but it does signal intent to look at some of those thornier issues that we've kind of, successive governments, and I'm not making a specific point on any particular government, have kind of put on the shelf and gone too difficult. And we need to carry on that momentum. We in Hounslow are very, very active in our sub-regional partnership, the West London Alliance, but also the Local Government Association as well, who do a lot of that lobbying on a national level, and we are a voice within that. And we will join those conversations and lead those conversations where need be on a cross-party basis. So I appreciate your support on that.
Councillor Giles.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a few questions on a few different topics. But I was just thinking that in order to create a balanced budget from a legal perspective, is it correct that in the budgeting process, your job is effectively to ensure that outgoings equal the amount coming in without a profit or a loss?
So
and I have a follow-up to this.
Don't work in profit or loss.
But without having additional money coming in.
There are three parts of the equation. The expenditure that goes out, much of which is statutory, has to be equal. The money that comes in through that pie chart, plus any reserves top-up that we can use. And obviously, you have to have reserves to be able to do that, which we have had.
Yeah. So just to follow up, the second part of that. But however, this doesn't have to reflect that the actual overspends that might be incurred during a year that it doesn't have to reflect that, or a reliance on drawing down additional reserves in order to agree the delivered.
So overspends
balance.
add another pressure onto our budget position. Some of that overspend, we're just about to finalise Q3, which is in my inbox at the moment, actually, so I haven't shared that, but it's going in the right direction from the £10.5 million at Q2, but an element of that becomes structural. As we've said, we make assumptions when we set the budget on what we think inflation might do, and that comes from the Bank of England, the OBR. Inflation actually went up before it kind of came down again, so that creates a structural pressure that creates the overspend. Not all of it, but that's one aspect of it, for instance, that has to roll into how we set the budget for the following year, because we have to pay for that somehow. That's all rolled into that very, very simplistic bar chart that I presented. What you'll see in that bar chart was £49 million, actually not the 44 structural gap. £5 million of the overspend is from demand, that's come through from adult social care or children's social care that we roll into and annualise that spend, and inflation. That's a real sort of the three key areas that we need to make sure we're paying for. For instance, children's social care, some costs on that are up to £10,000 a week. So, this is a lot of money that we have to fund.
Back on my other one. So, and then I was looking at the One Hounslow Financial Strategy detailed budget report that was published today ahead of OSCE next week. There's a reference under HRA 06 that the end of the police contract will deliver a saving of £300,000 in 26-27. So could you please share what's being planned by LBH to fill this policing gap to ensure that residents feel safe in their hometowns?
So you'll recall that we had a police funded team, both in Hounslow House and on the High Street. The police indicated that they could no longer support that. They were concentrating on neighbourhood policing. So that's where we're not paying for that anymore. That's where the 300,000. You may well be aware that there is currently an enforcement review going on, which is looking fundamentally at enforcement, all types of enforcement, not just community safety officers. So there will be more detail coming out on that, but we are committed to having a visible presence of enforcement officers in and around the streets patrolling.
And how much will that cost us?
I'll have to get I don't have it on the top of my head, I'm sorry, Councillor Giles. But that also includes, we're looking at the parking contracts as well, and some of those civil enforcement officers being equipped with the equipment to be able to report, for example, fly tipping or something else. And that's all, there's a business plan on the council's website that's been through cabinet that you can have a look at, but that 300,000 nets off any activity in the enforcement review.
I do have one more, but I can wait.
Can we go one more to Councillor Mashiso?
Yeah, no, I've got one more, but I can wait. I can wait, I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jake and Councillor Rajawat. I think Paul in the audience said something about managing a house and how Lambton Group would be like managing a house and what that kind of looks like. But in terms of managing a house, the cost of living is something that is affecting everybody in terms of expenditure. You mentioned inflation, adding to that to you as the council, but also to households. The inflation also bites quite deeply too. And so when money leaves the house, in addition to inflation, in addition to other costs, of food, clothing, and so on, when the money leaves the house to fund the council tax for the council, is it unfair to ask for residents to ask what exactly is happening with their money that they're giving to the council? So, for example, is it unfair for them to expect efficient repairs in their housing when they report it? Is it unfair when they pay maximum council tax for them to not have the bins collected on time, every time? Is it unfair for them to have roads potted and reported and then only a few weeks later for that pot to be reopened again? Is it unfair? Is it unfair for consultations to be put, and yet the views that were put forward are not taken to the council, and the council doesn't react. So my point is this: if you're asking residents to pay more, and I don't think they are against it, it seems, they will pay more, is it unfair for them to expect a service back?
That's probably one for me, Councillor Shisho. No, it's not.
It's not unfair.
It's not unfair for them to demand a service.
Fantastic. So it's not unfair for them to expect better services. Okay. So last year, we successfully, as a council, as an opposition, we successfully forced you to make a U-turn on cutting down the streetlights, dimming the streetlights that you had proposed in last year's budget. In this year's budget, Councillor Giles has mentioned it, and I think Councillor Biddulph also mentioned it. In this year's budget, you're proposing to make cuts on housing revenue funding side of things, £180,000 on that. Yes, the one you just mentioned with the 300k in 2026-28. Initially, the first year is 180k. Look, check your papers for next week's overview and scrutiny. Shall I point you to that? Yes, the wardens, yeah. So 180k this year, and you said 300k over the next 2 years, 27-28. Okay. In that saving that you are proposing, are you looking, and you've said here that you would do things differently, are you looking to reduce the number of wardens in the borough as a result of that? Or what exactly do you mean by you be doing things differently? Are you going to be cutting costs there as well? Or is it just waiting for this contract to end?
So I think you might have misunderstood me, Councillor Shisho. The saving is because the police no longer can support the team that we paid for. So that's why we made the saving. The investment is in enforcement. So actually, what residents will see is more enforcement officers with a uniform of some description, yet to be decided, out on the streets. And there will be a mixture of community safety officers, there'll be your traditional enforcement officers, there'll be parking enforcement officers. The key for us, and the pressure for us in terms of that, is equipping them with the correct technology to be able to do that generic enforcement job, and making sure that they are all trained to the same way. Now, some of those are external contracts, and so we'll make sure that those contracts are fit for purpose, and some of that is internal training as well. But just to be really, really clear with you, Councillor Shisho, the two examples that you just gave are where external funding is no longer coming to us. So it's not our money, it's money that was coming to us that no longer is. So in the case of Councillor Biddulph, and I will get more details as I've committed to, that was Home Office funding that had a time limit to it and it was not renewed. In the case of the example that you gave, that was money that we paid, that we paid the Met for a service they provided that they said they would no longer be able to provide us because they were concentrating on neighbourhood policing. So what you will now see is, subject to there being no promotions or natural retirements, all of the neighbourhood policing teams across the borough are fully staffed.
So just very quickly, Chair. So those who are working with domestic violence, these are women, especially women who are working in a council to tackle the issues of domestic violence, who are going the extra mile, by the way. Their pay is under pressure here in this can you confirm that you would not be getting cuts to our domestic violence officers, who are predominantly women, who could be out of pocket by about £8,000 at the end of this budget?
I'm not sure where you're getting the £8,000 from, Councillor Shisho. Forgive me, there are two separate issues there. One, you talked about pay. This is nothing to do with pay. It's the service that's offered. We will pay them, and there is a service, and that service will respond to the demand that we have and the projected demand that we have. I'm not of the view that we should be cutting that service, and yes, it may change in terms of the people that are offering it, but there will still be a service. And I don't know exactly what that service looks like. I'm happy to, as we go through that review, come back to you. I can never say never, but someone else will be taking up in a different department. And if there are threats to redundancy, generally redeployment is offered first anyway.
Okay, we can wrap up that item because it was an hour and a half, and I feel sorry for Jake, who has given up a lot of his time. So thank you both very much for coming, and looking forward to overview and scrutiny in a week's time. Right, we now, having said we were ahead of schedule, we're now slightly behind schedule, but we now come to agenda item 6, which is the open forum. So any questions which haven't already been addressed, now is the floor's chance to ask some. Jackie at the back, shot up. Where's the microphone? There's a couple coming to you. There you go.
Hello, thank you very much. Hello, I'm Jackie Elton. I'm the chair of the Mid-Chiswick Society and Friends of Chiswick Common. For over a year, we've been expressing our concerns and asking about the overdevelopment in Chiswick Back Common, the area which was supposed to be a low-cost community sports facility for local people, but over the last few years has been redeveloped as a high-end, high-price paddle courts, which are frankly unaffordable to most local residents. Now, the key point here is that development has been very intense, but development on common land, this is common land, doesn't just need planning permission from the local authority, i.e. Hounslow, but it also requires consent from the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Now, I have written to the this government department, and that they have said that not a single consent for this area of common land has been granted since, wait for it, 2003. So it would seem that the developments on the common have happened without the appropriate legal consent. In short, they are not lawful. Now, I've written to the chief executive, the head of legal, the department that is responsible for the assets department that's responsible for this, for many months, and I have received no reply. When will, is the leader still here? Oh, thank you. When will my group get a reply? When is Hounslow going to address the fact that there's a huge breach of the law here and take control of the situation? Chiswick Common is supposed to be a precious resource for the community, and why will Hounslow not ensure that it is being lawfully preserved and protected? Thank you.
Jackie, thank you very much. Councillors in Chiswick, Gunnersbury.
I don't need to speak, Chair. I've been working with Jackie on this. I think it would be fair to say I've been supporting as much as I can.
And it sounds like a reply is the most important thing at this point. So I think what we can do as a forum is try and make sure that we get something from the chief executive in response to that.
I think the issue is it's caught up in a very slow legal wrangle because we have contracted out our legal services, and there have been a lot of criticisms about the company that deals with our legal issues. They're very, very slow, and it is extremely concerning, and I think that's something that's a point for the leader.
Maybe he can... Maybe we can get a direct.
Well, so forgive me, this hasn't crossed my desk, but I'm very happy for you to send it to me, and I'll convene the relevant officers. Is this the one? Oh, okay. So, sorry, that one is across my desk. My apologies. We'll endeavour to get.
yeah, we'll endeavour to get a response to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the floor? Sam?
I was going to suggest, if you're not getting a reply, rephrase, I think I could do it for you, but rephrase it as an FOI, as a freedom of information. And you've had no reply.
Well, I did one FOI which was turned down. It was about what was being paid for this resource, and that was rejected. So I'm not very encouraged by my experience of FOIs, but I would value some advice on how to. But I mean, I have had some replies, just not the replies that we need. This is quite a big issue. And I mean, the officers are aware of this issue. They're just not replying to it.
I just wanted to add on that, firstly, Jackie, well done on you. You've been on this from day dot, and I think there's been quite a few exchanges. You've actually met with the person who wanted to put this thing up there, and you've really fought the corner for your neighbours and residents. From my perspective, looking at this, it does look as though it is very convoluted and is not transparent. And I think the leader of the council being here, and a councillor who has also taken up your case as well on our behalf, I guess, it's important that we have transparency. And being involved in this, I can clearly see there's no transparency. So I'm with you on this one. The more transparency we can have on this, the better, because both parties are willing to talk to each other. They are, but the administration and the bureaucracy is stopping this from progressing.
Yes, the lady at the front, and if we can get a microphone. Oh, no.
I live in Chiswick. I know nothing about this organisation, and yet I've been there for 20 years. I would like to know just how many people are complaining about it, because in the summer and in the winter, it's the most amazing resource for people. It's taking up a piece of land that is not public parkland, and what was there before was pretty disgusting. Well, I would understand the comments you made about the fact that it's extremely expensive. I don't know that because I don't use it. But the pleasure that people are getting for using this facility, I would hate to see it be dissolved. I would agree, if there's no transparency, then it must be investigated. But I fear that there's been no transparency from this community group, organisation, residents association, either. Where's their information about themselves? What do we know about them? How many people do they represent who are complaining? And I would worry about those things, and I think if the council's going to respond, they should ask those questions.
I don't think we can respond on behalf of the group.
Well, we've been in existence for about 40 years. We've been around for years, and we have regular meetings. We are not, I think the councillors are well aware of who we are. We're in regular touch. I mean, we're not against, sorry? Where do you live? Yeah, we represent Elliot Road, Windmill Road, Chiswick Common Road, Chardin Road. We're a specific area, and since about 10 to 15 years, we were also asked to take on the organisation Friends of Chiswick Common. That's who we are.
All right. Any other questions from the floor? I don't think so. No. All right. Brilliant. Well, maybe one more at the back. It was very late, but I'll allow it. We have microphones behind you.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Car thefts. in our road, one of my neighbours 2 years ago had a large Porsche stolen. At Christmas, they went away for a few days and they lost their headlights. Someone actually completely stole the headlights on their new Porsche. Another car in Hadley Gardens had its wheels stolen, and they came out one morning to find the car propped up on a pile of bricks with no wheels. We're told that policing has been stepped up, but quite clearly someone's got a shopping list and they're coming around stealing parts of cars now, and it really is unacceptable. What's going to happen? What can we do about it? This neighbour said she's really afraid for her children. She's got teenage children. If people are around doing this at 2 a.m, what's going to happen? You know, what will happen to their children at 2 a.m? But it really is ridiculous.
Yeah, Councillor Giles, I think you've got something.
Thanks, Marlene. So I can't remember where you live, and I don't know what ward this is, but we had the Riverside Ward Police panel last week, and the fact is that the thieves seem to have moved on from Range Rovers onto Porsches and are stealing things according to order, as you say. The advice from the police has been put an independent tracker on it that's not part of the car mobilised system or car manufactured system. Put any sort of deterrent, such as like a wheel clamp or a wheel clamp either on the steering wheel or the actual wheel. In Riverside, we've observed a 40% decrease from December of last year to the year before in the thefts of cars. And I don't know whether that's due to people choosing to not park their cars on the streets, or the fact that actually the police have been very, very good in arresting and convicting a lot of people in the last year. So we have to be grateful for the work they're doing. I don't know if any of my other colleagues have many more ideas. Yeah. So if I could just finish. So I think the moment is, we know that from a victim perspective, being the victim of any theft can be really destabilising and quite traumatic. But the importance that we're hearing from the police is local trackers. If you have CCTV, report it. If you see that there are suspicious people coming around, there's been reports of the fact that things have moved onto motorbikes now. And there's some really brazen people around with helmets, and even though they're being recorded, but all the footage does help because it helps to build up a picture that can help lead to convictions.
Yeah, just to add to Councillor Giles's comment. I mean, the one thing is obviously the victims are the ones that we need to be supporting, and rather than anything else, you know, I would say that perhaps the only thing that is safe in Chiswick at the moment is a Lamborghini, so that won't be nicked from anywhere. But yeah, but just on a serious note, in terms of residents, I think one thing that the police are doing really, really well, and you're not seeing this outwardly at the moment, but that's the online. They're using technology such as the Met Engage app, which has now been, you know, put across whole of Chiswick. That site, or that particular platform, creates a sort of a build-up of evidence from different sources, from different people. So whenever you see or you're unsure about something in your road or in your area, can I advise you that you log it on Met Engage? It just creates that umbrella or that map, so that when the police do their thing, which they've been doing for the last 4 months in this borough, they can catch those culprits. But I do feel that the victims, we need more support for them, Chair. I don't know how we do that, but that's what we need.
Any final questions from the floor? Not from the floor. Oh, do you want to say something very quickly? Because we can get through this without suspending standing orders if you're super quick.
Very quickly indeed. Just to say that as part of some of the things we're discussing tonight, the council are bringing in a load more CCTV cameras, which will help with detection. But also when speaking to the police the other day, they were very much saying the thieves at the moment are taking it by road, kind of coming in, doing a few cars by road and then moving on. So as Councillor Mashicho says, do report as soon as it happens. I know it's, but more CCTV cameras, reporting to the police more, and hopefully we can bring it down.
Somehow we need to be advised of that. I think we've probably all got very active WhatsApp groups in our roads and whatever. If information could get to us faster, that would be great. You know, watch out for your Porsche.
So as far as I'm aware, you get communications out from Met Engage as well as just feeding into it. So it's a really, really valuable tool to use.
Right, we're going to move on then to agenda item 7, which is the issue tracker. And there are a few things on here. I'm not proposing to go through it line by line because, again, if we wrap up in 5 minutes, there's no suspension of standing orders. Are there any quick updates on anything that's on this issue tracker? Councillor Gill.
On the installation of the lift at Turnham Green, I've heard that we've got funding from central government, which because it's been lobbied by 2 of our MPs and also the council, and also they're looking into Kew Bridge as well. So hopefully there will be a feasibility study from the funding, and that will go ahead.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's in my ward. I haven't heard that Turnham Green is getting funding for that. But
no, it's Gunnersbury and Kew Bridge, which are being looked at by...
And feasibilities were already conducted back in 2024 for Kew Bridge.
If you've got some sources, Councillor Gill, I'd love to tap into them because we would desperately like some step-free access at Turnham Green Station. And that's something we'll be pushing on.
That's not a problem.
Please do. Any other quick ones? Councillor Giles?
Just on Chiswick Village. There's been no improvement in communication from the developers to residents. They were given less than 12 hours notice about electricity being cut off as a result of works. So I'm still working with building control on that.
Thank you. And Councillor Biddulph.
Just very quickly, thanks, Chair, on Gunnersbury Park events. There's a current planning application. You might still have time to respond if you want to, but the park management team has applied for a 10-year blanket licence, during which there would be no chance to comment or change anything. So if that's of concern to you, if you're affected by festivals, which many residents are, you need to be aware that that will be coming to the planning committee very soon.
Great. Any others? No, I don't think so. We passed them before. I'm sorry. Off the list.
Day to fix all the potholes in a denser road. So there are some examples of where that app works extremely well.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to I've seen all the minutes, I've read the last 2 years, but I just wanted to know there are some places it works extremely well.
And that isn't a doubt. If I could just come back, that isn't a doubt at all, including fly tipping. Contractual agreement is that fly tipping must be removed within 24 hours, and I've only known it not to be removed once. That isn't the issue, though. It's about the word closed being used when it's not the responsibility of Hounslow, or if they're not going to act on it for some time, or if they've tabled it for 6 months ahead. So we do need to get them to change the messaging on the occasions when closed doesn't mean closed. That's the point.
Yeah, and that's we've all had casework where it's been closed before it's sorted.
It's more esoteric than the efficiency point, which you're making very fairly.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Agenda item 8, urgent business. There is none that I've been notified of. In which case, the next meeting will be on the 17th of March 2026, just before PERDA, so we can still be political. And I declare the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.